The sky was already turning dark on Christmas Eve as Mike Thomas wiped his greasy hands on an old rag. The small town of Pine Creek was quiet, most shops having closed early for the holiday. Mike glanced at his watch, 5:30 p.m. Just enough time to lock up his small repair shop, drive home, and help his wife Lily with the final touches for their Christmas Eve dinner. Almost done for the day? Tom, his apprentice, called from the front office. Yeah, just finishing up, Mike replied, hanging his worn blue work shirt on the hook by the door. You heading to your mom's place for dinner? Tom nodded, already pulling on his heavy winter coat. She's making her famous pot roast. Wouldn't miss it. What about you? Big plans with the family? Mike smiled, thinking about the evening ahead. Lily had been preparing for days. Her special ham glazed with honey and brown sugar, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and the apple pie his kids, Pete and Annie, looked forward to all year. His in-laws were visiting from out of town, and this dinner was something they all counted on. Nothing fancy. Just family time. Mike grabbed his jacket and keys. The kids have been looking forward to it for weeks. Pete even helped Lily bake cookies this year. The two men stepped outside into the crisp December air. Small snowflakes had just started falling, catching the light from the street lamps. The Christmas decorations along Main Street twinkled in the early evening darkness, and somewhere in the distance, carolers were singing. Well, Merry Christmas, boss, Tom said, climbing into his truck. See you on the 26th. Merry Christmas, Mike called back, locking the door to Thomas Auto Repair. The sign, hand-painted years ago when he first opened the shop, creaked slightly in the winter breeze. Mike had just settled into his old pickup truck when his phone rang. He fished it out of his pocket, expecting to see Lily's name on the screen. Instead, it showed unknown caller. He almost didn't answer. It was Christmas Eve after all, but something made him hit the green button. Hello? Thomas Auto Repair? He answered, keeping the engine running to warm up the cab. Oh, thank goodness someone answered. A woman's voice, tight with worry, came through the line. I'm so sorry to bother you on Christmas Eve, but we're stranded on Highway 16, about 20 miles outside of town. Our car just started smoking and then died completely. We have 3 kids with us, and it's starting to snow. Mike closed his eyes for a moment. 20 miles out on Highway 16 meant at least a 40-minute drive each way, plus whatever time it would take to fix their car, or determine it couldn't be fixed on the spot. He thought about the dinner waiting at home, Lily's disappointed face, the kids asking where he was. Sir, are you still there? The woman asked, her voice breaking slightly. I understand if you can't help. It's Christmas Eve, we'll figure something out. That small quiver in her voice made his decision for him. I'm here, Mike said, already turning the key in the ignition. Can you tell me exactly where you are? Any landmarks nearby? The relief in her voice was immediate. We're just past the old Johnson farm where the road curves around the lake. There's a big billboard for Pine Creek Resort right next to us. We have our hazard lights on. I know the spot, Mike said, pulling out of the parking lot. My name's Mike, by the way. I'm Rosa Diaz. My husband Hector is here with our kids. We were driving to my mother's house for Christmas. Her voice trailed off, and Mike could hear the worry creeping back in. Sit tight, Rosa. I'll be there as soon as I can. Keep warm, okay? Do you have enough gas to run the heater? Yes, for now. Thank you so much, Mike, really. Mike hung up and immediately dialed home. Lily answered on the second ring. Hey, honey, are you on your way? Your mom is already asking when we're eating. Mike took a deep breath. Lily, I'm really sorry, but I just got a call. There's a family stranded out on Highway 16, and I'm the only mechanic available right now. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. On Christmas Eve? Mike, everyone's waiting. The kids have been talking about this dinner for weeks. Can't someone else help them? I wish there was, Mike said, turning onto the highway. The snow was coming down harder now. But all the other shops are closed, and the tow companies have a 3-hour wait time because of the weather. They've got young kids with them, Lily. He heard his wife sigh, and he could picture her standing in their warm kitchen, the house smelling of Christmas dinner, their children running around excitedly. How long will you be? She finally asked. I honestly don't know. Depends what's wrong with their car. I'll try to be as quick as I can, but you might miss dinner, Lily finished for him. I'm sorry, Mike said again, feeling the weight of his choice. Tell the kids I'll make it up to them. I understand, Lily said, though her voice was tinged with disappointment. It's one of the things I love about you, you know. You always help people who need it, even when it costs you something. Just try to hurry, okay? And drive safe in this snow. Mike promised he would and ended the call, feeling both guilty and determined. The highway stretched out before him, snow swirling in his headlights. He turned up the radio, Christmas music filling the cab of his truck, and pressed down on the gas pedal. Somewhere out there, the Diaz family was waiting in the cold, and he was their best hope for salvaging their Christmas Eve. As he drove through the darkening landscape, past farms and fields now dusted with white, Mike couldn't help wondering what he would find when he reached them. Could he fix their car quickly enough to make it back for at least part of the family dinner, or would this be the Christmas Eve spent on the side of a highway, helping strangers while his own family celebrated without him? Either way, he knew he couldn't have made a different choice. Some things were just more important than plans, even Christmas plans. He just hoped his family would understand. The snow continued to fall as Mike's truck disappeared into the night, red taillights glowing like distant Christmas lights against the darkness. His mind filled with thoughts of both the family waiting at home and the family waiting on the highway. The headlights of Mike's truck cut through the thickening snow as he squinted at the roadside, looking for the stranded family. 20 minutes into his drive, the weather had taken a turn for the worse. What had started as light, picturesque snowfall was quickly becoming a proper winter storm. The windshield wipers worked overtime, sweeping away the heavy flakes that threatened to block his view. "Come on, where are you?" he muttered, slowing down as he approached the area where Rosa had described. The old Johnson farm should be coming up any minute now. Then he spotted it, the faint glow of hazard lights blinking through the snow, just past the curve in the road. Mike pulled over carefully, making sure to leave enough space between his truck and their vehicle. As he stepped out into the cold, the wind immediately bit at his face and hands. He grabbed his tool bag and portable work light from the back of his truck and trudged through the accumulating snow. An older model SUV sat on the shoulder, hood already propped open. A man in a thick coat stood peering inside, his breath visible in the freezing air. When he heard Mike approaching, he turned, relief washing over his face. "Are you the mechanic?" the man asked, extending a gloved hand. "I'm Hector Diaz, thank you so much for coming out tonight." Mike shook his hand firmly. "Mike Thomas. And don't mention it. Let's see what we're dealing with here." The passenger door of the SUV opened and Rosa stepped out, pulling her coat tight around her. "Mike, oh thank goodness. We were starting to worry you might not make it in this snow." "It's getting bad out here," Mike agreed, setting up his portable light to illuminate the engine. "How long have you folks been stopped here?" "Almost 2 hours now," Hector replied, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "We tried calling a few places before we reached you. Nobody was answering." Mike nodded grimly. "It's Christmas Eve, most places shut down early." He glanced at their SUV, noting the luggage strapped to the roof and the back seat packed with wrapped presents. "You were heading to family?" Rosa moved closer, standing beside her husband. "My mother's house in Riverdale. It's about an hour further north. We do this trip every year, but our car's been making strange noises for a while now. Hector thought it would make it this one last time." Hector looked embarrassed. "I should have gotten it checked out weeks ago. The kids were so excited about Christmas with their grandmother. I didn't want to disappoint them." As if on cue, a small face appeared in the back window of the SUV. A boy no more than 7, his eyes wide with curiosity. Beside him sat 2 other children, a slightly older girl and a toddler strapped into a car seat, both bundled up in thick winter clothing. Mike waved at the kids, earning a shy wave in return from the older 2. "They holding up okay?" he asked. Rosa nodded. "They've been amazing, actually. We have some snacks and their tablets to keep them occupied, but they're getting cold, even with the heater running periodically. We've been trying to conserve gas." Mike turned his attention to the engine, moving his light methodically over the components. The moment he saw the coolant puddle beneath the car and the white residue around the engine block, he knew they were dealing with something serious. He ran his fingers along the head gasket, feeling the telltale wetness. "Blown head gasket," he said finally, straightening up. "That's not something I can permanently fix out here on the side of the road." Hector's face fell. "So that's it? We're stuck here?" "I didn't say that," Mike replied, already mentally running through his options. "I might be able to do a temporary fix, something to get you to the nearest town or service station. It won't be pretty and you'll need to drive slow, but it might work." "How long would that take?" Rosa asked, glancing back at her children. Mike checked his watch. It was already past 7 p.m. His family would be sitting down to dinner soon, wondering where he was. At least 2, maybe 3 hours in these conditions. And even then, I can't guarantee it'll work. He saw the hope dimming in their eyes and made a decision. Tell you what, why don't you folks come sit in my truck while I work on this? It's warm in there and the kids will be more comfortable. Relief flooded Rosa's face. Are you sure? We don't want to impose any more than we already have. I'm sure, Mike said firmly. No sense in everyone freezing while I work. Go on, get the kids settled. There should be some water bottles and maybe even a few granola bars in the glove compartment if anyone's hungry. While the Diaz family gathered their essentials and moved to his truck, Mike returned to his own vehicle briefly to make another call home. Lily answered immediately. Mike, are you on your way back? Not yet, honey, he said, watching as Hector helped the children across the snowy ground toward his truck. It's worse than I thought. Blown head gasket. I'm going to try a temporary fix, but it's going to take a while. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. In the background, he could hear the clinking of dishes and voices. His in-laws, probably asking who was on the phone. So you're going to miss dinner, Lily said finally. Her voice flat. I'm afraid so, Mike admitted. I'm really sorry, Lily. These people are stranded with 3 young kids. The youngest can't be more than 3 years old. If I leave them here, they could be stuck all night in this storm. He heard her sigh deeply. I understand, I do. It's just, the kids are really disappointed. Pete made you a special Christmas card and everything. Mike's heart sank. Tell him I'll be there to open it even if it's late. I promise. And Lily, thank you for understanding. Not everyone would. Just be safe out there, okay? The weather report says the storm is getting worse. After hanging up, Mike returned to the Diaz family's SUV with renewed determination. He was going to miss Christmas Eve dinner with his family, but he might be able to save Christmas for this family. Working quickly, he grabbed the supplies he'd need from his truck: coolant, a chemical sealer, tools, and a few other items he kept for roadside emergencies. The wind had picked up, blowing snow sideways now, making the already difficult job even harder. Mike pulled his hat lower and his collar higher, shielding his face as best he could while he worked. His fingers grew numb despite his gloves, and he had to stop occasionally to warm them against the portable heater he'd set up next to the engine. From time to time, he glanced over at his truck where the Diaz family waited. He could see them through the window, Hector and Rosa in the front seats, the 3 children huddled together in the back. The youngest appeared to be sleeping now, head resting against the older girl's shoulder. The boy was drawing figures in the condensation on the window. Hours passed as Mike worked methodically, his portable lamp casting long shadows across the snow. The temporary repair was complex. He needed to clean the affected area as best he could, apply the chemical sealer, and then carefully reassemble everything. Under normal circumstances in his workshop, with all his tools at hand, it would have been challenging enough. Out here in freezing temperatures and blowing snow, it was a true test of his skills. At one point, Hector came out to check on his progress and offer help. There must be something I can do, he insisted. Stamping his feet against the cold, Mike handed him a flashlight. You can hold this steady while I tighten these bolts. And maybe talk to me a bit. Keep my mind off the cold. As they worked together, Hector told Mike about their family, how he worked as a high school science teacher, how Rosa had recently started a small catering business from their home kitchen, how his mother-in-law had been widowed 2 years ago, and how important these family Christmases were to her. She's getting older now, Hector said, directing the light where Mike pointed. Each Christmas feels more precious, you know. That's why we were so determined to make this trip, even with the car acting up. I should have known better. Hey, we all take chances sometimes, Mike replied, his voice muffled as he leaned deeper into the engine compartment, especially for family. Speaking of family, Hector said cautiously, Rosa mentioned you were missing your own Christmas dinner to help us. We feel terrible about that. Mike paused his work for a moment, thinking about home. By now, dinner would be over. The dishes would be washed and put away. His kids might even be in bed, disappointed that their father hadn't been there for their special night. Some things are more important, he said simply, and returned to his task. Finally, after nearly 4 hours of work in the brutal cold, Mike closed the hood of the SUV. That should hold, he told Hector and Rosa, who had both come out to hear the verdict. But you need to drive slow, no more than 40 miles per hour, and you'll need to stop every 20 minutes or so to let the engine cool down and check the coolant levels. I've put some extra coolant in your trunk just in case. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. I don't even know how to thank you. No need, Mike said, packing up his tools. Just get your family safely to your mother's house. And make sure to get this properly fixed before you head home after Christmas. How much do we owe you? Hector asked, reaching for his wallet. Mike waved him off. Consider it a Christmas gift. Just pay it forward someday. As the Diaz family prepared to continue their journey, the youngest child, finally awake, pressed her face against the window and waved enthusiastically at Mike. He waved back, smiling despite his exhaustion and the biting cold. He watched as they carefully pulled back onto the highway, hazard lights blinking as they began moving slowly through the snow. Only when their taillights had disappeared into the distance did Mike climb back into his own truck, his body aching from the hours of work in the cold. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. Christmas Eve was almost over, and he had spent it on the side of a highway helping strangers. Yet somehow, as he started his engine and turned toward home, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had done the right thing, even though it had cost him something precious. As Mike drove through the quiet, snow-covered night, he thought about the Diaz family continuing their journey to Grandma's house, and about his own family waiting at home. 2 Christmas Eves, so different yet connected by one man's choice to help when help was needed most. The house was dark when Mike finally pulled into his driveway, save for the glow of the Christmas tree lights visible through the living room window. He sat in his truck for a moment, engine off, exhaustion washing over him. The digital clock on his dashboard read 12:23 a.m., officially Christmas Day. He had missed the entire Christmas Eve celebration. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he made his way to the front door. He tried to be quiet, assuming everyone would be asleep by now, but as he turned his key in the lock, the hallway light flicked on. Lily stood there in her robe, arms crossed, her expression a mixture of relief and lingering disappointment. You're back, she said simply. Mike nodded, suddenly unsure what to say. He stomped the snow from his boots and hung his coat on the rack by the door. I'm sorry it took so long. The job was complicated and the weather made everything harder. Lily's expression softened slightly. Did you manage to help them? Yeah, Mike said, following her into the kitchen. Family with 3 kids. Their car had a blown head gasket. I got it working well enough to get them to their grandmother's house at least. They were really grateful. The kitchen still held traces of the dinner he'd missed. A few serving dishes sat on the counter, covered in plastic wrap. Leftovers Lily had saved for him. The dining room table, visible through the doorway, had been cleared and wiped clean. The fancy tablecloth removed and folded away until next year. The kids waited as long as they could, Lily said, noticing his gaze. Pete even tried to convince us to postpone dinner until you got here, but by 8:30, they were too hungry to wait anymore. Mike's heart sank. How disappointed were they? Lily sighed, leaning against the counter. Pretty disappointed at first. Especially Pete. You know how he gets. He had the whole evening planned out in his head. But after we explained that you were helping another family who might otherwise be stuck in the snow all night, they seemed to understand. Annie even said you were like Santa's helper, making sure another family got to have their Christmas too. Mike smiled at that, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. That sounds like Annie, always seeing the bright side. Your parents left around 10, Lily continued. They said to tell you Merry Christmas and that they'll see us tomorrow afternoon for presents. She paused, then added, Your dad also said he was proud of you for helping that family, even though it meant missing our dinner. That meant more to Mike than he expected. His father had always taught him about responsibility and helping others, even when it was inconvenient. Still, knowing his family had sat around the dinner table without him left an ache in his chest. Are you hungry? Lily asked, already moving to the refrigerator. I saved you a plate. I can heat it up. You don't have to do that, Mike said. I can get it myself. You should go back to bed. I wouldn't have been able to sleep anyway, not knowing if you were safe. She pulled out a covered plate piled high with ham, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a dinner roll. The roads looked awful on the news. I was worried about you out there. While the microwave hummed, warming his belated dinner, Mike washed his hands at the sink, scrubbing hard to remove the engine grease that had worked its way into the creases of his skin despite his gloves. His back ached from bending over the engine for hours, and his fingers still felt stiff from the cold. Tell me about them, Lily said as she set the steaming plate before him. "The family you helped?" Mike took a grateful bite of ham before answering. It was good, even reheated, though he knew it would have been better fresh, surrounded by family at the proper time. The Diaz family. 3 kids, a boy around 7, a girl maybe 10, and a little one, probably 3. They were heading to the grandmother's house in Riverdale. Apparently it's their big family tradition every year. And they were just stuck there on the side of the road in this weather? Mike nodded. When I got there, they'd already been waiting almost 2 hours. No one else was answering their calls. The father, Hector, he's a science teacher, nice guy, felt terrible about putting his family in that situation. He knew the car was having problems but thought it would make it one more trip. "We've all done things like that," Lily admitted. "Remember that time we drove all the way to the lake with a radiator leak because you were sure it would hold until we got back?" Mike chuckled at the memory. "We ended up staying an extra day while I fixed it in the cabin's driveway. The kids thought it was the best vacation ever because they got an extra day of swimming." They fell into a comfortable silence as Mike continued eating. Lily made them both cups of tea and sat across from him at the kitchen island. Outside, the snow had finally stopped falling, and the world was quiet in that special way it only ever is on Christmas night. "The kids left something for you in the living room," Lily said after a while. "They insisted I tell you to look at it tonight even if you got home very late." Curious, Mike followed his wife into the living room. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, colorful lights twinkling, wrapped presents arranged beneath it for tomorrow's celebration. On the coffee table sat 2 items, a handmade card covered in glitter and crayon drawings and a plate with cookies and a glass of milk. "They left cookies for Santa," Mike said, confused. "But Pete stopped believing in Santa last year." Lily smiled. "These aren't for Santa, they're for you. Pete said that if you were out helping people on Christmas Eve like Santa does, then you deserved cookies too when you got home." Mike picked up the card. On the front was a childish drawing of what appeared to be him in his work clothes, standing next to a car. Above it, in Pete's careful handwriting, "To Dad, our Christmas hero." Inside, both kids had written messages and signed their names with many X's and O's for hugs and kisses. Something caught in Mike's throat as he read their words. Annie had written, "I'm proud my daddy helps people even on Christmas." Pete's message was longer. "Sorry you missed dinner, but I'm glad you helped those kids have their Christmas. I saved you the biggest piece of pie for tomorrow. Love you lots." Mike set the card down carefully and picked up a cookie. "I don't deserve these kids," he said quietly. "Sure you do," Lily replied, leaning against his side. "They're learning from you, about sacrifice and kindness and putting others first, even when it's hard, even when it costs you something important." Mike put his arm around his wife, drawing her close. "I really am sorry about dinner. I know how much work you put into it and how much it means to have everyone together." "There will be other dinners," Lily said. "But that family needed you tonight. You did the right thing, Mike. I'm not saying I wasn't disappointed, I was. But I'm also proud of you." They stood together for a while, looking at their Christmas tree, the lights casting colorful patterns across the room. Eventually, Lily yawned. "I should get to bed," she said. "The kids will be up at the crack of dawn to open presents." Mike nodded. "I'll be up in a minute. Just want to finish these cookies the kids left me." After Lily had gone upstairs, Mike sat alone in the quiet living room, munching on a chocolate chip cookie and thinking about the day. He'd missed the special dinner he'd been looking forward to for weeks. He hadn't been there to see the kids' excitement, to laugh with his parents, to enjoy Lily's cooking fresh from the oven. He'd spent his Christmas Eve on the side of a snowy highway instead, cold and tired and working on a job he wasn't even going to charge for. And yet somehow, he felt at peace with his choice. The Diaz family would be with their grandmother now, the children asleep in anticipation of Christmas morning. They wouldn't be stranded in a hotel somewhere, or worse, still waiting for help on that dark, cold road. And his own children, despite their disappointment, had found a way to understand and even be proud of what he'd done. Mike finished the last cookie and drank the milk. Then he turned off the Christmas tree lights and headed upstairs to join his wife in bed, his body tired but his heart full. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and he would spend every minute of it with his family, making up for lost time. But tonight, even with all he had missed, somehow felt complete. As he passed the kids' rooms, he peeked in on each of them. Pete was sprawled across his bed, one arm hanging off the edge, his favorite stuffed dinosaur tucked under the other. Mike gently repositioned him and pulled the covers up. In the other room, Annie slept curled up tight like a cat, her face peaceful in the glow of her nightlight. "Merry Christmas," he whispered to each of them, before finally heading to his own bedroom, where Lily was already asleep. As he crawled into bed beside his wife, careful not to wake her, Mike couldn't have known that the events of this Christmas Eve, his sacrifice and the family he'd helped, would lead to unexpected changes in the coming days, changes that would shift the course of his life in ways he could never have imagined. But for now, he was simply a tired mechanic who had missed Christmas Eve dinner to help strangers in need. Finally home and ready for sleep as the first hours of Christmas Day ticked quietly by. Christmas morning arrived with blinding sunshine reflecting off fresh snow. Mike woke to the sound of excited whispers and the patter of small feet in the hallway outside the bedroom door. Despite having gone to bed just a few hours earlier, he felt surprisingly refreshed as he glanced at the clock, 7:15 a.m. The kids had actually slept in by their Christmas standards. "They're trying to be quiet because they know you got home late," Lily murmured beside him, her eyes still closed. "But they've been up since 6, peeking in to see if we're awake yet." Mike smiled and kissed her forehead. "Well, we shouldn't keep them waiting any longer, should we?" The day unfolded exactly as Christmas should, wrapping paper scattered across the living room floor, exclamations of delight over presents, pancakes shaped like snowmen for breakfast, and phone calls to distant relatives. Mike's parents arrived around noon, bringing more gifts and helping Lily prepare the Christmas Day meal while Mike and the kids built a massive snow fort in the backyard. By mid-afternoon, with everyone pleasantly full from dinner and settling in for board games and Christmas movies, Mike had almost forgotten about the previous night's roadside adventure. The disappointment of missing the Christmas Eve celebration had been replaced by the joy of today's moments. Pete's face when he unwrapped the science kit he'd been hinting about for months, Annie's impromptu dance performance in her new ballet shoes, the warmth of family all around him, the sound of the doorbell cut through the living room chatter, unexpected and startling on Christmas Day, when most people were secluded with their own families. "Are we expecting anyone?" Mike's father asked, pausing the board game they'd been playing. Mike shook his head, already rising to his feet. "Maybe Carol from next door? She sometimes drops by with her Christmas cookies." But when Mike opened the front door, he found not his neighbor but a group of strangers standing on his snow-cleared porch. It took him a moment to recognize them. The Diaz family from last night, now cleaned up and smiling instead of cold and worried. Rosa stood in front, holding a large covered dish that filled the air with the scent of spices. Beside her, Hector carried several wrapped packages. The 3 children clustered around their parents, the youngest holding a hand-drawn card. "Merry Christmas," they chorused as Mike stood there momentarily speechless. How did you find my house?" he finally managed to ask. Hector smiled sheepishly. "Your business card was in the bag with the extra coolant you gave us. It had your address on it. We hope it's okay that we came," Rosa added quickly. "We wanted to thank you properly for what you did last night. We know you missed your family dinner because of us and we couldn't stop thinking about it." Before Mike could respond, Lily appeared behind him. "Mike, who is it?" "It's the Diaz family," he said, stepping back to let her see. "The folks I helped last night." Understanding dawned on Lily's face. Without hesitation, she opened the door wider. "Please come in. It's freezing out there." The next few minutes were a flurry of introductions and explanations as the Diaz family met the Thomas family. The children sized each other up with that curious mixture of shyness and instant connection that only kids seem capable of, while the adults exchanged pleasantries in the crowded entryway. "We brought homemade tamales," Rosa explained, handing the covered dish to Lily. "It's our family's Christmas tradition." "And these are just some small gifts," Hector added, indicating the packages. "Nothing fancy, but we wanted the kids to have something to open." Mike was about to protest that gifts weren't necessary when he noticed there was someone else on his porch, an elderly woman he hadn't seen at first, standing slightly behind the Diaz family. She was small and dignified, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to be taking in everything. Hector noticed Mike's gaze and turned. "Oh, and this is Rosa's mother, Mrs. Alvarez. Mama, this is Mr. Thomas, the mechanic who helped us last night." The elderly woman stepped forward, her movement surprisingly spry for someone who must have been in her 70s. She extended a gloved hand to Mike. "Call me Elena, please. I've heard all about what you did for my family last night. They arrived very late, but they arrived safe. Thanks to you. There was something about her, a quiet authority, a sharp gaze that seemed to look right through him, that made Mike stand a little straighter as he shook her hand. I was just doing my job. Ma'am? Elena smiled, the corners of her eyes crinkling. On Christmas Eve? Miles from town in a snowstorm? I think we both know it was more than that, young man. By now, the commotion had drawn Mike's parents and children from the living room. More introductions were made as everyone moved further into the house. The initial awkwardness of unexpected visitors quickly melted away as the two families began to mingle. Pete was showing the Diaz children his new science kit, while Annie had taken the youngest, Maria, to see the Christmas tree up close. In the kitchen, Rosa and Lily were transferring the tamales to a serving plate, chatting as if they'd known each other for years rather than minutes. Mike's mother had joined them, curious about the recipe and sharing stories of her own family's Christmas food traditions. Mike found himself in the living room with Hector, his father, and Elena. Hector was explaining how the car had performed after Mike's emergency repair. It got us all the way to Riverdale, just like you said it would. We had to stop a few times to let it cool down, but it made it. I've already called a repair shop there. They can't look at it until after the holiday, but at least we're not stranded anymore. Mike's father clapped him on the shoulder. Sounds like my son did good work. The best, Hector agreed. Most people wouldn't have even answered the phone on Christmas Eve, let alone driven out in that weather to help strangers. Mike felt his face grow warm at the praise. Really, it wasn't, don't diminish what you did, Elena cut in, her voice gentle but firm. It's a rare thing these days, the kind of sacrifice you made. You gave up your family's Christmas Eve so my family could have theirs. That deserves acknowledgement. There was a brief lull in the conversation, filled only by the sounds of children's laughter from across the room. Then Elena leaned forward slightly, her eyes intent on Mike's face. Tell me something, Mr. Thomas. How long have you been a mechanic? Going on 15 years now, Mike replied. Started working at Joe's garage right out of high school, then opened my own place about 8 years ago. And your shop? Thomas Auto Repair, yes? It's just you and one employee? Mike nodded, wondering where this line of questioning was going. Just me and Tom, my apprentice. It's small, but we do okay. Word of mouth keeps us busy enough. Elena nodded thoughtfully. I thought as much. Small operation, good reputation, skilled work. She paused, glancing around the modest living room. May I ask you a rather personal question, Mr. Thomas? Curious now, Mike nodded. Are you satisfied with your business as it is? Or have you ever thought about expanding? The question caught Mike off guard. Of course he'd thought about it, dreamed about it even. A bigger shop, more equipment, maybe even a few more employees. But the reality of small-town economics and the capital needed for such an expansion had always seemed like insurmountable obstacles. I've thought about it, he admitted, but it's complicated. The location I'm in now is too small for any real growth, and the better commercial spaces in town are either occupied or too expensive. Plus there's the matter of equipment, hiring staff. He trailed off, not wanting to bore this woman with the details of his unfulfilled business aspirations. Elena was watching him with those sharp eyes, as if she could see right through to his unspoken thoughts. What if those obstacles were removed? What would you do then? Mike glanced at his father, who looked as puzzled as he felt. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking, Mrs. Alvarez. She smiled, and there was something knowing in that smile. Perhaps I should explain who I am, beyond just Rosa's mother. Until my retirement 3 years ago, I was the chief financial officer for Riverdale Community Bank. Before that, I ran several successful businesses with my late husband, including an auto repair shop much like yours. This information seemed to shift the air in the room. Mike's father leaned forward with new interest. Your husband was a mechanic? He asked. Among other things, Elena replied. Jorge was a man of many talents and interests. The auto shop was his first business, but over the years we branched out. Real estate mainly. We acquired quite a few properties in Riverdale and the surrounding towns, including Pine Creek. Mike felt a strange tingling at the back of his neck, a sense that this conversation was moving toward something significant. In fact, Elena continued, her gaze returning to Mike, we still own a property here in Pine Creek that's been sitting empty for almost 2 years now. The old Garcia Automotive building on Main Street. Mike knew the building well, a spacious garage with multiple bays, an office space, and a prime location just off the town square. It had been the biggest auto shop in town until old Mr. Garcia retired and closed up. Mike had driven Saint it countless times, allowing himself to briefly imagine what he could do with a space like that before reality set in again. "That's a great building," Mike said. "I always wondered why no one took it over after Mr. Garcia left." Elena's smile widened slightly. "Because I wasn't ready to let just anyone have it. Jorge was very particular about his properties and the businesses that occupied them. He believed in finding the right people, not just the right price." She paused, her eyes never leaving Mike's face. "People like you, Mr. Thomas." The room seemed to go very still. Even Hector looked surprised, as if this was the first he was hearing of this. "I'm not sure I follow," Mike said, though a part of him was beginning to understand exactly what Elena was suggesting. "What my mother is trying to say," Rosa interjected, having returned from the kitchen with Lily in time to hear the last part of the conversation, "is that she's been looking for someone trustworthy to take over the old garage. Someone skilled, reliable, and with strong values. Someone who would miss his own Christmas Eve dinner to help strangers in need," Elena added quietly. Mike looked from Rosa to Elena and back again, hardly daring to believe what he was hearing. "Are you saying you want me to take over the Garcia building?" Elena nodded. "That's precisely what I'm saying. Not as a tenant, as a partner. I've been considering reopening the business for some time now, but at my age I need someone with the skills and work ethic to run the day-to-day operations. Someone I can trust." The offer hung in the air, enormous and unexpected. Mike looked at Lily, whose eyes had widened in surprise. I don't even know what to say," Mike stammered. "It's incredibly generous, but I couldn't possibly—" "Before you refuse," Elena interrupted gently, "let me be clear. This isn't charity. It's business. A partnership. You provide the skill and management. I provide the property and startup capital. We share the profits. The paperwork can wait until after the holidays, but I wanted to make the offer in person." Mike's mind was racing. The Garcia building was at least 3 times the size of his current shop. With that kind of space, the right equipment, and perhaps a few more skilled mechanics, he could expand his services, take on more complex jobs, maybe even branch into custom work. "I need to think about this," he said finally. "It's a lot to take in." Elena nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Of course. Take all the time you need. We're staying with Rosa and Hector until New Year's Day. You can reach me at their home whenever you're ready to discuss details." The conversation gradually shifted to other topics, but Mike remained distracted, his thoughts spinning with possibilities. As the afternoon wore on, the two families grew more comfortable with each other. The tamales were shared and praised, the gifts from the Diaz family were opened with delight, and by the time they prepared to leave, it felt as if they'd all known each other much longer than a few hours. Standing on the porch as the visitors prepared to depart, Mike found himself beside Elena once more. "Why me?" he couldn't help asking. "You don't even know me." Elena's eyes crinkled at the corners as she smiled. "I know enough. I know you sacrificed your own family celebration to help mine. I know you did excellent work under terrible conditions. I know you refused payment for that work." She paused, her expression growing more serious. "Character reveals itself most clearly in how we treat others when there's nothing to gain from it. Last night, Mr. Thomas, your character was revealed." She patted his arm gently. "Think about my offer. Talk it over with your family. This could be the opportunity you've been waiting for." As Mike watched the Diaz's car drive away, with Elena waving regally from the back seat, he felt Lily's arm slip around his waist. "Did that really just happen?" she asked, leaning against his side. Mike shook his head in wonder. "I think it did. But I'm not entirely sure I believe it." "A business partnership," Lily mused. "With the Garcia building. Mike, that's the shop you've always dreamed of." "It's a huge decision," he said, even as excitement began to build within him. There would be so many details to work out, so many risks. Lily turned to face him, taking both his hands in hers. "True, but isn't this what you've wanted? A chance to grow your business, to do more than just make ends meet?" Mike nodded slowly. "Yeah, it is. But who could have imagined it would come from helping a stranded family on Christmas Eve? That's the thing about doing the right thing," Lily said, squeezing his hands. "You never know where it might lead." As they turned to go back inside, where the rest of the family waited with curious questions about their unexpected visitors. Mike couldn't help thinking about how differently this Christmas could have gone. If he had ignored that phone call, if he had chosen his family's dinner over helping strangers in need, none of this would be happening now. One choice, one sacrifice made without expectation of reward, had somehow opened a door he'd never even known existed. And as the day drew to a close with his children tucked into bed and the house quiet once more, Mike Thomas found himself looking toward the future with new hope and unexpected possibilities. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a blur for Mike. During the day, he ran his small shop as usual, fixing transmissions and changing oil, but his mind was elsewhere, occupied with calculations, plans, and endless conversations with Lily about Elena's unexpected offer. Each night, they sat at the kitchen table after the kids were in bed, going over the numbers again and again. Lily, who had worked as a bookkeeper before the children were born, created spreadsheets and projections while Mike sketched layouts for how he might arrange the larger garage space. "If we take this seriously," Lily said on the third night of their planning sessions, "we need to see the building up close. You haven't been inside since Garcia closed up, have you?" Mike shook his head. "Just peeked through the windows a few times. But you're right. We should ask to look inside before making any decisions." The next day, Mike called the number Elena had given him. Rosa answered. And within minutes, plans were made for Mike and Lily to meet Elena at the Garcia building the following afternoon. Standing in the empty garage the next day, Mike felt like a kid in a candy store. The space was even better than he'd remembered. 4 service bays instead of the 2 in his current shop, a proper waiting area for customers, an office with space for a desk and filing cabinets, even a small kitchenette and bathroom for staff. The concrete floor was stained with old oil spills and dust covered every surface, but the bones of the place were solid. Jorge insisted on top-quality equipment, Elena explained as she led them through the building. "When he closed the shop, we sold some of the specialized tools, but the lifts are still here, the air compressor system, the basic workshop setup." Mike examined one of the hydraulic lifts, impressed by its quality despite the years of disuse. "These are commercial grade. Much better than what I'm working with now." Elena nodded, pleased. "My husband believed in investing in quality. He always said if you buy cheap, you buy twice." While Mike explored the garage area, mentally cataloging what equipment was still usable and what would need to be replaced, Lily and Elena toured the office space. "You could make this really nice for customers," Lily commented, looking around the dusty waiting room. "Some comfortable chairs, maybe a coffee station, a play area for kids in that corner." "You have a good eye," Elena said. "When Jorge ran this place, I handled the customer experience side. Made it feel less like a dirty garage and more like a professional service center. People appreciated that, especially women who were intimidated by auto shops." By the time they had completed the tour, Mike's mind was racing with possibilities. With this much space and the right equipment, he could expand beyond basic repairs into more specialized services, custom work, restorations, maybe even some light manufacturing of hard-to-find parts. The additional income could make a real difference for his family. "What do you think?" Elena asked as they stood in the center of the main garage, her sharp eyes missing nothing of Mike's excitement. "It's perfect," Mike admitted. "Better than perfect, but I still have concerns about the financial side. The startup costs, even with your investment, would be significant." Elena nodded approvingly. "Good. I'd be worried if you weren't concerned about that. Business isn't just about passion, it's about practical planning." She pulled a folder from her large purse and handed it to him. "I've drawn up some preliminary numbers. Take them home, look them over with Lily, and let me know what you think." That night, the kitchen table disappeared under a spread of papers as Mike and Lily went through Elena's proposal line by line. The deal was more generous than they had anticipated. Elena would contribute the building, valued at a significant sum, as her investment in the partnership, plus a cash amount for renovations and equipment upgrades. Mike would contribute his existing business assets and expertise. They would be equal partners, sharing both costs and profits. "This could really work," Lily said, looking up from her calculator after running the numbers for the third time. "Even with conservative estimates for growth, we could be turning a profit within the first year." Mike nodded slowly, still hardly believing their good fortune. "It seems too good to be true," Why would she offer this kind of partnership to someone she barely knows? Lily reached across the table to take his hand. Maybe because she sees in you what I've always seen, someone talented, hardworking, and trustworthy. Someone worth investing in. The days leading up to New Year's Eve were filled with more meetings, more planning, and increasingly excited discussions about the future. Mike brought Tom, his apprentice, to see the building, watching the young man's eyes widen as he took in the space. "So I'd be coming with you?" Tom asked, trying to contain his enthusiasm. "To the new place?" "Of course," Mike said. "I'm going to need help. A lot of help, actually. I was thinking you might be ready for more responsibility. Shift from apprentice to junior mechanic with a pay bump to match." Tom's face lit up. "Really? That would be amazing." By New Year's Eve, Mike and Elena had reached an agreement in principle, with the formal paperwork to be handled in the coming week. To celebrate, both families gathered at Rosa and Hector's home for a New Year's party, along with a few of their friends and neighbors. The house was warm and noisy, filled with music, laughter, and the aromas of holiday food. Mike found himself in the kitchen, helping Hector mix drinks while the women chatted in the living room and the children played games in the basement. "I still can't believe how this all happened," Mike said, shaking his head as he sliced limes. "A week ago, I was just a small-town mechanic with a tiny shop. Now I'm about to be partners with your mother-in-law in what will be the largest auto repair business in Pine Creek." Hector smiled, pouring rum into a pitcher of homemade sangria. "Life has a funny way of working out sometimes. But I'm not surprised Mama chose you. She's always had an eye for good people and good opportunities. It's how she and my father-in-law built their success. I just hope I can live up to her expectations," Mike admitted. "This is a big step up from what I've been doing." "You'll do fine," Hector assured him. "From what I saw that night on the highway, you know your stuff. And Elena doesn't make mistakes when it comes to business." As midnight approached, everyone gathered in the living room, glasses of champagne or sparkling cider in hand. The television showed the celebrations in New York City, the famous ball poised to drop in Times Square. Elena, seated in the place of honor on the sofa, raised her glass. "Before the new year begins, I'd like to make a toast." The room quieted as everyone turned to the elderly woman. "To new beginnings," she said, her voice strong despite her years, "and to the unexpected blessings that come from acts of kindness. 1 week ago, a stranger stopped to help my family on a cold, snowy night. Tonight, that stranger has become a friend and a business partner." She looked directly at Mike. "May our new venture prosper, and may we always remember that the most valuable investments are those we make in each other." "Hear, hear," came the chorus of responses as glasses clinked together. As the countdown to midnight began, Mike found himself standing next to Lily, her hand warm in his. Looking around the room at these people who had been strangers just a week ago, he marveled at how quickly and completely his life had changed, all because of one decision, one sacrifice made without expectation of reward. 10, 9, 8! The children shouted along with the television host. Mike squeezed Lily's hand. "Are we really doing this?" he whispered. She smiled up at him, her eyes bright with excitement and possibility. "Yes, we really are. 7, 6, 5. He thought about the Garcia building, soon to be Thomas Alvarez Auto Center according to the sign design he and Elena had agreed upon yesterday. He thought about the expanded services they would offer, the new equipment they would install, the additional mechanics they would hire. 4, 3, 2. He thought about the chain of events that had led to this moment. A phone call on Christmas Eve, a family stranded in the snow, a missed dinner, an unexpected visitor. 1. Happy New Year. As cheers erupted around them and Lily stretched up to kiss him, Mike Thomas felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. The new year stretched before him, full of challenges and opportunities he couldn't have imagined just a week ago. Later, as they drove home through the quiet streets of Pine Creek, the children asleep in the back seat, Lily rested her head against Mike's shoulder. "You know what I keep thinking about," she said softly. "What's that?" "How close you came to not answering that phone call on Christmas Eve. If you had just turned it off when you left the shop, or if you'd seen it was an unknown number and ignored it." Mike nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. None of this would have happened. We'd still be in the same place we've been for years, getting by but not really moving forward. It makes you wonder how many other moments like that we miss, Lily mused. Little crossroads where one choice or another might change everything. They fell silent for a while, each lost in their own thoughts as the car carried them through the night. "I've been thinking about the shop sign," Mike said finally. "Thomas Alvarez Auto Center is fine, but it's a mouthful. What about something simpler? Something that captures what happened, how this all came to be." "Like what?" Mike smiled in the darkness. "Crossroads Automotive." Lily considered it for a moment. "I like it. It fits. I'll run it by Elena tomorrow," Mike said. "I think she'll approve." As they pulled into their driveway, Mike couldn't help looking back over the past week with wonder. Who could have predicted that missing Christmas Eve dinner to help a stranded family would lead to all this? His life had quite literally come to a crossroads that night on the highway. Though he hadn't recognized it at the time, the house was dark and quiet as they carried the sleeping children inside and tucked them into their beds. Outside, a light snow had begun to fall again, covering the world in fresh white, like a clean page waiting to be written upon. Standing at the window of their bedroom, watching the snowflakes dance in the glow of the streetlight, Mike thought about the year ahead. There would be challenges, certainly. The stress of a new business, the learning curve of a larger operation, the responsibility of partnership. But for the first time in years, he felt a sense of momentum, of moving forward rather than simply staying afloat. Lily came to stand beside him, slipping her arm around his waist. "Penny, for your thoughts?" "I was just thinking that sometimes the best things in life come from the moments when we put others first," Mike said. "When we choose to help even when it costs us something important." Lily nodded against his shoulder, like missing Christmas Eve dinner to rescue strangers on a snowy highway. Exactly like that. Mike turned from the window to face his wife. "Thank you for understanding that night, for not making me feel worse than I already did about missing dinner, for teaching our kids that sometimes helping others is more important than our own plans. That's what family does," Lily said simply. "We support each other's choices, even the hard ones." She yawned, the late hour catching up with her. "Come to bed. Tomorrow is the first day of our new life, and you'll need your rest." As they settled beneath the warm covers, Mike found himself filled with an unexpected sense of peace and purpose. 1 week ago, he had made a choice that cost him something precious, time with his family on a special night. He had made that choice without any expectation of reward, simply because it was the right thing to do. And somehow that one act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events that was now transforming his life. The missed Christmas Eve dinner had led to a chance encounter that opened doors he never knew existed. His sacrifice had, in the end, become the catalyst for something wonderful. As sleep began to claim him, Mike's last conscious thought was one of simple gratitude, for unexpected visitors, for second chances, and for the mysterious ways in which one small act of kindness can sometimes change everything.